allegiance to the flag
of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
for all. Thank you. Before we begin, I just would like to ask for a moment of silence in honor of Dr. Peter Perricone, wife of Donna Perricone, the longstanding president of the Bay Shore Chamber of Commerce. Peter was a doctor, Good Samaritan Hospital, many, many years in the community. He just recently passed, in fact, is being waked today. So we just ask God to bless his soul. He was a good man. Okay, we have one public hearing and two decision items scheduled for this evening. We'll begin with our scheduled public hearing item first, TC 5388, Bola EM Realty LLC. And I would ask the town attorney to please read the hearing notice.
All right, TC 5388, Bola EM Realty LLC. Applicant requests a modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC 4774 and a town board special permit for a fast food restaurant pursuant to Islip Town Code 68302G.
Thanks, JR. Is the applicant ready to make his presentation?
Yes, good evening, Madam Supervisor. How are you, fellow board
Very
members?
good, thank you.
This is good. This is Dave Altman from Brown Altman DeLeo. We are counsel to Bola on this matter. And for the record, David Altman, Brown Altman DeLeo, 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301W, Melville, New York, for the applicant. As town attorney just indicated, we are seeking modification of certain covenants and restrictions that have been put in place roughly 10, 12 years ago when the site was last redeveloped and was subject to it at that time a change of zone application. Site is currently zoned B3, which, as we know, in the town of Islip is appropriate for gasoline service station use. The applicant seeks to modify the existing service station by adding a drive-through, which will be situated along the west side of the building. That drive-through encompasses a roughly 908 square foot addition to the west side of the building. And if you look at the site aerial photo of the site, you'll see that the western third of the property, which is fairly long and narrow, is for all intents and purposes undeveloped. So it will not be developed next to existing development. And in fact, it'll be between the entrance ramp and the Southern State Parkway, so not impacting anything directly adjacent to it. The drive-through queue will wrap around the north side of the building, and motorists will enter the drive-through queue from Belmore Avenue. Now, one of the things the applicant has proposed in connection with this drive-through is to, in fact, supplement the existing evergreen buffer, which is there today. There will be some additional plantings along the west portion of the property to further screen the site. I've been to the site, Madam Supervisor, a couple of times, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, as are the other board members. That evergreen buffer is really so dense you cannot see the station from Spur Drive North. And we're going to, again, as I mentioned, supplement that with some additional plantings in addition to a solid white 6-foot PVC fence to further help buffer some of the residents that are on the north side of Spur Drive North. The applicant doesn't propose any changes to existing site access. And in fact, in working with the project's traffic consultants, Stonefield Engineering, who I believe are with us on tonight's Zoom meeting, we received a sort of conditional approval on October 17th from DOT as it relates to maintaining the existing point of access from the Sunrise Highway North Service Road, which at present is right in, right out. And the applicant proposes to maintain that curb cut without any modifications. The existing curb cut on North Belmore will also remain in place, which is at the moment a full movement curb cut for ingress and egress. The applicant also proposes to maintain the existing ground sign, which is out the southeast corner of the property, right at Sunrise Highway and North Belmore. The site will be heavily landscaped, and I know the board is familiar with the Bola brand and certainly the seasonal landscaping, year-round landscaping that Bola maintains throughout its sites, not only in the town of Islip, but across Long Island as well. It should be noted that over 30% of the site, or actually 34% of the site, will remain green space and landscape. There will be an improvement to what is there. Having worked with the planning department and the planning board, we appeared before the planning board on 10/27 of last year and presented them with the application. And I believe it was in January of this year, I believe January 14th, if I recall correctly, I'm sorry, January 12th, the planning board issued a positive recommendation to this board in connection with Bola's application. I've also spoken with planning department, in particular, Mr. Culligan, relative to the proposed covenants and restrictions for this application, should this board in its wisdom decide to grant the requested relief. And the applicant has reviewed it and we are comfortable and we are okay with the CNRs as proposed. That in essence characterizes the application. It's a fairly modest application for an existing site. And I'll tell you, Madam Chair, before I wrap up my comments, one of the principal drivers for this is this site is odd in nature in that it's well over an acre in size, but it's oblong in the fact that it has tremendous frontage on Sunrise Highway and Spur Drive. And when the site was built, if you look at the site plan, you'll see that we're proposing to maintain the existing canopy and 5 pump islands, which are roughly on the eastern half of the property. It's almost a 100-foot walk from the westernmost pump to the convenience store. And in general, motorists just simply don't want to do it. If it's not close enough, they are not going to get out of their car and walk to the convenience store. And that's really reflected, I hate to say, in the current economics of the site. I know I've been there a few times. Stonefield has conducted their studies there. There's never more than 2 or 3 cars in front of that convenience store. And as such, this has been, I hate to say, a losing proposition for Bola during 2020 and 2021 in excess of 6 figures. So this proposed drive-through is really, and it will be a Burger King restaurant that will be put in there. If there's concern, and I understand that there's been some concern relative to, quote, a morning type use, like where a coffee shop, this is not going to be a coffee shop and it's going to be a Burger King. So Burger King has little to no breakfast crowd at all. So I'll note that for the record, but this is really necessary at this point to try and keep this station afloat, because the reality is if we can't get this in place, we're probably going to wind up shuttering the door. So I just want the board to understand that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Altman. Your presentation was pretty thorough. At this point, does anyone from the board have any questions or comments for the applicant before we go to the planning board, planning department? Okay, Sean, if you would.
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. As stated by the applicant, this application proposes an addition of a fast food restaurant to an existing convenience market and a gasoline service station. The primary concerns of the planning board at their public hearing were the conditions of the Northern Buffer area along the proposed drive-through lane, as well as the traffic impacts of the fast food restaurant. The applicant has indicated he can preserve the existing mature Leyland cypress trees along Spur Drive North. The town's traffic consultant reviewed the traffic impact study submitted by the applicant and commented that vehicular speeds are high on the stretch of Sunrise Highway Service Road, and motorists looking to enter the service road experience significant delays. However, he further acknowledged that this is an underperforming site as it exists now, as stated by the applicant. The planning board recommended that the fast food restaurant not be a coffee type shop, as the westbound traffic is busiest in the morning when a coffee shop's peak periods would be. So that summarizes the planning board's report. I'm here if you have any questions.
Thanks, Sean. Does anyone have any questions of the department at this point? I know that as far as it being characterized as underutilized, I have passed this location many, many times. And underutilized is probably a very apt description of the site. Hopefully, this will help keep it afloat, because the last thing we want to see is another shuttered site, especially along the Sunrise Highway corridor. No one has signed up to speak on this that I'm aware of. Is that true?
We have one speaker who signed up to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, go ahead. If you would, please bring that speaker in.
Henry Pullman.
Mr. Coleman?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my concern is the traffic. Okay, now this is gonna be a new facility. Right now, we have a lot of traffic coming in East Nassau and East Roslyn, which would, in effect, lead right into that Burger King. How are we going to control this traffic, this additional traffic? Has anybody done a study? Has anybody done a study on the effects and what traffic is there now? Are you there?
Yeah, I defer to the department to respond to this, but the streets you're mentioning, I don't see on the site plan. This borders.
Yeah, they're access. They're not on the site plan, but they're access to the site plan. They are access, East Nassau and East Roslyn.
Going into Belmore
Go
Avenue?
west.
Going
Go
into
west.
Belmore?
Huh? Yes, they read into Belmore.
Yeah.
They read into Belmore.
Okay, Sean? I mean, the curb cut that's on Sunrise Highway, which I would imagine that most of the people going into this particular gas station would be going into, would still remain there. They're not modifying that, correct?
I don't know if you're aware of this.
Excuse me, Mr. Pullman, this is not a debate. I was speaking to the department, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't
That's
understand.
okay. That's okay. You
I'm new
asked
at
a
this.
question, and I'm going to ask them to respond to it. In fact, before they respond, if you have anything else to add, please do so now.
Well, I had originally back in 2019, January 5th, 2021, sent a letter to the traffic department complaining about the new traffic that is coming into East Nassau and going to Belmore or down my street, Commercial Avenue. Look at Commercial Avenue.
Mhm.
You have that in front of you and such.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they were unable to help me. They supposedly did a counter. They put a counter down there, and I had never heard anything back from them. It's a pretty impacted letter, and again, nothing was done. Now let me explain what's happening on Connecticut Avenue. And Connecticut Avenue is adjacent to Belmore. I'm assuming you all know that. It's adjacent to Belmore. And people coming down Connecticut, if you put your GPS on north of East Nassau, and they want to go to Southern State, any place on Southern State or Sunrise Highway, your GPS doesn't direct you to East Roslyn and the light to the service road. It directs you to East Nassau and down Commercial Avenue, which is my street, which is not the problem, but that's something I'm going to bring up later. So I don't understand you have the light down there where the traffic should be going. But a GPS is telling the traffic to come down East
Oh,
Nassau.
okay.
So now that traffic, so a person says, well, let's go to Burger King. They're gonna come down East Nassau there because that's what the GPS tells them. So something has to be
All
done
right.
there.
Thank you, Mr. Pullman. I think your 3 minutes are up and I thank you. We have your comments and Sean, if you would like to respond, or I'll have the applicant respond.
Well, as far as the most recent comment on concerns over East Nassau, that's a complaint better referred to the Division of Traffic Safety and the Department of Public Works. I do know there's signage along East Rosslyn directing westbound traffic to take the on-ramp that's east of Connecticut. I don't know what's at East Nassau, so we would have to.
Well, no, you have,
Into that.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm
Please,
sorry.
Mr. Pullman.
Well, I'm just saying that if the GPS tells you there is no sign directing you to that light, I've never seen it. I come down Connecticut all the time. There
Okay.
is no sign directing you to the light on East Rosslyn. There is no sign.
Mr. Pullman?
Yeah,
Thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry, I'm a little, haven't done this in a while, so.
That's okay, we understand. And if, you've raised some interesting points, and if this application is approved, I'm certain that we can easily direct traffic safety in light of the changing configuration to take a second look at the streets that you've mentioned. Sean, would you agree that that might be a strategy?
Yeah, it's most appropriately handled by them. That wasn't
Okay.
something.
Well, it's fine.
So-
I've written a letter, and now the traffic is, and at the time, didn't realize it or didn't know if the GPS was directing the people down East
Okay.
Nassau.
Mr. Pullman,
Uh,
we really can't be responsible for what GPS is telling
Yeah,
us.
I was
I
about to
understand
say.
that, but someone
Okay,
has to be
so-
responsible.
Again, I thank you. You've served.
You're on,
You're
on-
muted, Madam Supervisor.
I started to say, Mr. Pullman, we will certainly take your comments to heart and address them, and we thank you. Does the applicant have anything further to add or respond to Mr. Pullman?
I think we have, oh, I'm sorry. I think we do have one other person that wants to speak on this, Sean. Lisa Knott.
Right. I can
Or do
promote,
you-
them. They weren't registered to speak, but we can promote them if you want.
They're in the chat and the question and answer.
Okay.
She's asked 3 questions in the
Okay.
question and answer.
Oh, she says she has no mic.
What time is the drive-through open to?
Thanks, Jim.
10 p.m.
Okay, were there other questions?
Where would the exit be? Would they have to drive down Spur Drive after leaving the drive-through?
They can, patrons exiting the drive-through can go back out onto the service road, or they can go across the station and exit onto North Belmore. Nothing is changing in terms of site access. What exists
The
today is
same
what's
question
going to
that-
exist tomorrow.
Counselor, it's the same question that I asked in my briefing with Sean. There is no access to Spur Drive, correct?
No, none.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great,
That answers Ms. Knott's question.
terrific. Thanks so much, Jim. Okay, Sean, do you have anyone else?
No, that's all who registered to speak.
JR, did you have anyone else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, very good. So we've heard from the department, the applicant. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing, issue a negative declaration, and approve the application.
With the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All in favor, the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Thank you, fellow board members.
You're welcome. Okay, we will move to TC 5387 is a decision item, J Nazaro Partnership. Applicant requests a change of zone from Business 1 District to Business 3 for a special permit for a fast food restaurant pursuant to 68-302G and a planning board special permit for outside seating as an accessory use to a restaurant pursuant to section 68-302.1E. A buffer relaxation is requested as part of this application. The environmental impacts will be assessed on this property. This property located in the Sable School District and located on the southeast corner of Montauk Highway, State Road 85 and Atlantic Avenue, West Sable, Route 90, Montauk Highway. On this application, there seems to have been a little bit of a hiccup, if you will, earlier today in their desire to get the information out to the public. IT inadvertently sent a Zoom notice with instructions telling everyone how to log on for the meeting that we had advertised for starting at 5 o'clock, but inadvertently advertised it for 6 o'clock. And in the interim, since we last addressed this, there have been some questions raised about the traffic studies. And I think in the interest of giving the town board adequate time to review some of the comments that were received as late as today, this afternoon, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn to the next change of zone meeting next month. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah. I was gonna say that.
Okay, hearing motion second. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the decision item is adjourned
May I be heard?
meeting. I'm sorry, JR?
No, this is Steve Bertolino for the previous application that you just adjourned. My appearance for the record is 130 West Main Street, East Islip, New York. I'd just like to know if that IT notice was specifically sent for our hearing or if it was sent for all three hearings at the same time.
I
This-
really don't have that information, but because there was a lot of discussion back and forth on this particular one, because there were changes in the dates of the meeting, the decision was made to adjourn. So that's it. We will, I guess, now move to TC 5379. TC 5379 Bola EM Realty, applicant requests a modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC 1931, along with a planning board special permit for a convenience market in the Business 3 District pursuant to 68-302.1D. The environmental impacts will be assessed on this property. This property is located in the Bay Shore School District and located on the southeast corner of Bay Shore Road, CR 57, and Manor Lane, Bay Shore 236, Bay Shore Road. This is a decision item. The public hearing was closed. There were some questions raised about security on the site. And I just want to make sure that we do reiterate for the record that there was sufficient safety and the security systems were in place for this, enhancing what is presently there. If Sean, could you respond to that?
Sure. I defer to the applicant to the specifics, but the applicant did submit a letter indicating that he has conferred with the Suffolk County Police Department and has installed additional security measures, as well as offered a dedicated police department parking stall in case there is a need to respond to an emergency call at this site.
And I believe it was my understanding that this would be also encouraged to be a relief point. Yes, Sean?
I'm sorry?
That the police department indicated that this would be a relief point.
Yeah, I don't know the terminology, but according to the applicant, they were amenable to having that designated stall.
Okay, and that's important. It gives that police presence on a regular basis. And if I do recall, this is an existing station that's been there for many, many years. Are there any comments from anyone from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Since the public hearing was already closed, I'll make a motion to issue a negative declaration and approve the resolution.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
We have a motion, Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed? The resolution is approved. And I do believe that's all the business to come before us this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mullen. Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Night.
Good night.
Good night, all.